Hello.
Hi, Ray.
I guess I'm the first guy here. I'm just going to sleep, so I was popping in, but and I was gonna try and kind of fall asleep while I was listening, but here I am.
Well,
Yeah.
you've got an opportunity to do something before going to sleep, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose so. I just yeah, I'm usually not up this late, so um
Uh,
but yeah, here I am. You doing all right?
yeah, I'm good.
Excellent. Yeah. Hmm. I don't really have too much to report on, I don't think. Uh, I re listened to our conversation a couple of times. It was really interesting. I think I'm still, it feels like I'm still really working on the disidentifying from thought piece. But that's just where I'm at right now, you know?
Yeah, sure. Okay, that's a good one. So, do you get that your aim is not to disidentify with thoughts directly, but rather to recognize when you are identified, in which case it will change. I won't say it'll dissolve 100% or anything. I don't know how it will change, but it will change because you're aware of it. Right. So you might say that, okay, well, we can just, we can still want the same thing, which is to not identify, but recognizing that trying to not identify is more identification.
Right.
You're going to
It's a
get very
doing.
identified trying to. That's right. Yeah, it's a doing. Yeah. So the way to disidentify is not to try and disidentify, but rather to simply become aware of when you are identifying and what does it feel like. Now this is such a bugbear for me at the moment because this is the crux of everything that we're doing. This incredibly subtle feeling that reveals your connection to this mythical object that you're identifying with, whatever that is.
Hmm.
So it's a really key point, but I haven't come across anything as hard to communicate as I have with that.
Sorry, can you rephrase that? What you're referring to? You like identification with this. I just missed a little bit of it.
Yeah.
You say it one more time.
The the crux of it is to not aim to get rid of the identification, because that is more identification. That is really intensifying the identification when you try and get rid of the identification. What the way to get rid of the identification is to simply realize when you are identified.
Hmm.
Now that's a bit of a tricky one because you can kind of come at that from a couple of angles. One of them is that you can say, well, these words came out of my mouth, and therefore, logically speaking, I was identified with something. Now, it might or might not be true, because those words can come out without you actually being identified, and they're the same words that might be there if you were identified. So it's like it's a tricky one. It depends on what's behind it. But the whole point is not to try and get rid of identification, but to recognize when there is that elastic band pull. There is that sticky sticky like treacle sticky between two mythical things, between you and whatever it is you're imagining that you are. They're both myths. Neither of them are actual, but it's that tension between those two things, that that owning of it, that connection to it, that reveals the belief that one or both of those things exist. And the moment you see that they don't, that they're only conceptual, they can only exist in your head as concepts, the moment you see that, you go, what am I identifying with? I'm identifying with some fairy story. And of course, then that belief changes, identification drops. Now, then after that, it can come back. It can get triggered by things. So that's a really important one to appreciate too. It doesn't mean that you've lost anything. If it comes back, it just says, okay, you're going to have a couple of goes to learn this one. That's all. It'll happen. So what is it that we're looking for? It's something that can't be put into words. It's that feeling of it belonging, a feeling of belonging. I don't know how to paint any more, better pictures of what you're to look for, and which is a, a, a treacle stickiness. You can imagine you got treacle between your thumb and your forefinger, and you're pulling them apart, and they kind of hang on together. It's that kind of feel of that stickiness, that connection, that.
Hmm. So, I've got something that may not seem too related, but um, I'm just gonna give it a go, I guess.
Yeah.
So kind of one of the things that I've been doing is uh, is just sitting there and waiting for the next thought.
Hmm.
Like if I catch myself, or if I feel like, oh, I'm caught up in thought, or I'm identifying with thought right now. Once I realize that, I say, all right, well, let's see what the next thought is going to be. And so I'm I'm taking my identification with thought, and I'm identifying with something else. I'm identifying with, the observer that's waiting for the next thought. So there's still identification happening, but now it's not with thought. And that is, I you know I'm not sure if that's like, it feels useful in a way. I think, as we discussed last time, to identify with something other than thought can be a useful sort of
Yep, staging point. Yeah.
yeah, staging point. And but I think having this identification with the observer, whatever's aware of the thoughts, is still, it may not be. It seems to have a similar dynamic to what you're describing, with like this feeling of belonging to, or this feeling of identification, association with. And well, while it's an interesting one where I'm like, okay, this is worthy of some examination at some point. The sense that I get is like, I'm I can't I don't want to fight a battle on two fronts right now. Like, I need to really.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard enough time disengaging from thought, and so that's kind of where I'm putting my focus. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, I want.
Yeah. All right. I get that.
Yeah.
Same thing can apply, right? The moment you're fighting a battle, you're going to lose. because
Mm,
nobody wins in a battle, right? So essentially, there's no possible good outcome from fighting anything. Right? So disengaging from thoughts, exactly the same process. You don't try and disengage. That's fighting an uphill battle. You'll never do that. You know, and if
mm,
you, the moment you say I'm going to disengage, what do? You make that thought rock solid. So
right.
you got to have something to disengage from. So you're creating the very problem that you want to get past. No, don't try and disengage. You simply be aware of when you're lost. Be aware of what they're
Mm,
happening. So thoughts can happen and they can be so enticing that you don't even realize they're happening because you're immediately lost in the content of what it's about.
mm,
Or then at the other extreme, you can see thoughts and you can almost see them like letters on a blackboard or something, like, or a scrolling text or something like that. It's a narration and it happens. And, it's, you can either be lost in what the words mean that are there, or you can just see the words floating past. And so there's a whole variety of, and everything in between those two, what the,
yeah.
what your relationship can be with thoughts. But so, look, I've only spoken to one person that really rocked my ship, so to speak, about thinking that you could never be without thoughts, because this person does experience moments of no thoughts at all, and that's not something I've ever known. Get it? I've never known that I've experienced that. So I'm not saying I haven't experienced it. I'm saying I've never been aware of experiencing that, and it's a tricky one because it kind of makes sense that of course if that's happening I'm not going to be aware of it, because what am I going to be aware of? Nothing. And so if there's no thoughts, those things just seem to disappear for me. But I am very aware of thoughts doing their thing in the background sometimes. If I pay attention to thoughts, I can see thoughts going on. Oh, they're crazy, they might sing in a single line of a song over and over again, or saying somebody's name, or just rolling some sound off the tongue, so to speak. Total rubbish, thousands and thousands of times a day. Well, I just don't even pay any attention to it. But it's still there. I,
Mhm.
I think, it kind of is. It's there if I go looking. I don't know if it's there if I'm not paying any attention to it. So from the perspective of me, I guess they don't exist. But I wouldn't say that's a no thought state. That seems to be something else, at least in
Yeah.
my mind. So and no matter what you come up with, we can go through all of these things, and we end up with there's nothing you can do. Just stop. Just stop and float in life.
Mm,
You can't do that, but can you imagine it happening? If you can imagine it happening, if you can imagine yourself cradled, supported by life, and you're just floating there on your back, and it's all very pleasant. If you can imagine that kind of surrender, from there you'll realize all this other stuff is just a lot of noise.
mm. Well, I mean, I would say I have, I recognize it as a possibility. I would say I have a hard time imagining that for myself at this moment,
Mhm.
just with kind of the things that are going on in my life. Just,
Now, hang on. You say that, but those
yeah.
things that are going on in your life, are they actually impacting on you now, other than as a response to a story about them?
Well, right now at this moment, no. I'm
No.
in my bed,
Yeah.
but like
So what I'm pointing
Mhm.
to here is recognizing that these aren't actual things at the moment, they're just stories about things. And once that happens, your attitude towards them changes. But if you notice what it is you're feeling about that, there's where the juice is for you. Right? So you
Hmm.
might say, well, these things are not happening to me right now because I'm in bed and I'm going to sleep, and they'll be there tomorrow when I go visit my wife or my ex-wife or go to pick up my
Yeah.
kids or something. Then they'll be there. Well, leave it until then.
Yeah.
You can see
Right.
clearly and quite easily that if you play the story now and start to worry about it now, that's unnecessary. It's not going to change anything for you, is it? Well, it might. It might make it worse. It might make you feel really shitty by the time you go and do it. Who
That's
knows?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, to me, that's still kind of a, that's a relationship with thought, because thinking about, oh well, I'm gonna go pick up my kids and what am I gonna do with them. It's kind of just a troubling. th- I mean, it's a thought right now. It's an abstraction of something that's gonna happen in the future.
And,
And
and it most likely
yeah,
won't happen the way you think it will.
well, yeah, it can't, like there's no way that I can conceptualize what's going to happen exactly the way it's going to happen. I just, I don't think it's possible.
Mm.
But what was I going to say here? Oh, so the as far as like disidentifying from thought, I think what I've been doing is just kind of recognizing that it's a thought that I'm sort of attached to. So, like in this example, I'd be like, oh, I'm imagining a future event. That's a thought that is troubling to me. I see that that's happening. I see it's a thought that, I don't really need to engage with right now. And so, like, the next step for me is like, well, I wonder what the next thought to show up is.
Mhm.
And so I sit there, and there's kind of a curiosity, a waiting or something. It doesn't always feel like a struggle, although I'm sure there are times when it does. And it's kind of peaceful in that way, I guess, where it's I'm not pushing a thought away. I'm waiting for the next one almost.
You're not engaged with it when it turns up. You're just watching it.
Well, yeah, and sometimes I'm engaged with it before I recognize that it's shown up necessarily.
Well, that's
But
you like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but once that happens, it's just like, oh, I'm engaged in a thought. I wonder what the next one is. So I'm always kind
But
of
yeah, you disengage.
looking
Yeah.
or waiting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like there's still identification there because it feels like I am the one doing it
Yeah. But
in a
so
way.
jumps out for
Mhm.
me big time is while that is happening, where are you looking? Right? Is there a secret story turning up that says something about what it means that's happening? If it is, chances are that you're responding to that story as well. Uh, So,
Hmm.
so the place to look when this is going on, and it's all that can all just happen. You don't have to make it. You don't have to work hard or give your whole attention to that happening. It'll happen because you set it to happen. Right? But then, where are you looking at that from?
Hmm.
What's underneath it? That's where that treacle feeling is underneath that.
Yeah.
Right? So is it, whatever it's you doing something, you disengaging with thoughts, you sitting meditating or whatever it is,
Yeah.
you've got identification.
Right.
Now it's again, remember, and I remind you, our primary purpose is not to kill identification. Our primary purpose is to look at what it is so that it can dissolve.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the I guess I'm less certain how to do that. um yeah, but yeah, I don't even really know how to comment on that. I think in what I'm describing to you, it's like I recognize that identification is happening because I'm sitting here waiting for the next thought. But in doing so, at the very least, I'm generally not identified with thoughts because I think that for me has been a strong pull to do that, right? Like,
Okay, so let me ask you this. Are you
mhm.
identified with not being identified with thoughts?
uh, I would say that when I'm sitting in this practice, whatever it is, I am identified with something that is not uh hmm like is it possible to identify with anything that's not a thought? Because
Huh?
identification itself is a thought, right? Like,
So what do you reckon? What do you reckon the answer to that question is?
I think if there's any identification at all, then there has to be thought involved.
Yeah, I would agree.
But but yeah, without that thought, without any identification, there really is um there's no doership because any action isn't owned or identified or, ascribed to anything really.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I just have to
Yeah.
like I don't even understand how I would even be able how that would be experienced, I
Well,
guess.
that's great. I love it. That's excellent. Right. Live in the understanding that you don't understand. And
Yeah.
that's excellent. Well, a story popped up here, right? Just imagine there's a tree outside your window somewhere out there. There's a tree, and ask yourself, are you identified with that tree? And if there's no
Hmm.
if there's no history there, if it wasn't the tree you climbed as a kid or anything like that, you probably say, no, it's just a tree. It's just out there. It's kind of objective. Well, your thoughts are just as objective, except they're not tangible, but they are objective. They just happen. We know that. We don't know what the next one's going to be. We know that they just turn up. They're objective in that sense, and they're the same as the tree. Now, what you do is you think of that tree and look at what you're feeling, and then think of your thoughts and look at what you're feeling, and notice the difference in what you're feeling, and that's the stickiness that we call identification.
Well, I think in either case, I'm identifying with whatever's having the experience, whatever's experiencing the tree or whatever's experiencing the thought.
Isn't the connection to that a logical connection? It's not a physical connection, is it?
No,
It's a
it's
so it's a
it's kind of
conclusion you've arrived at.
right. It's an extrapolation.
Yeah. Okay. Only it's based on inaccurate maths, so to speak.
I mean, I'll say that it's habitual. It's kind of
Right. Okay.
I yeah, I guess I have a really difficult time untangling this knot of like how an experience can be had without an experiencer. And
Mm,
I've read that, this is key to the understanding, but I feel
yep. I
a
would.
bit helpless other than to say like that's still how I, see things at the moment.
Yep. Okay. So when that comes up, I tend to want to come at it from the other direction and say, not what is not there in the way of a self, but rather what is there. And you've heard me talk about all of these stories we've collected. and then we respond to those stories, and that gives us a sense of self. Right? But it doesn't mean, it doesn't prove anything except that a sense of self exists.
Mhm.
And that sense of self is the sensation and the stories all put together. Right? But when you go, therefore, that means, that's just thought rubbish. That's just thought. That's concept. That has no validity, no credibility. It's just thought. I mean, you can think of pink elephants or unicorns, and that has the same validity as that particular thought. That logically speaking, therefore, there must be a self in there running the show. I mean, nobody's ever found that self, have they? Ever?
Yeah, I, hmm. I mean, I'm open to the possibility that the self that I'm identifying, I mean, the self that I'm identifying with is an illusion. Um, but when you talk about, do I identify with a thought or do I identify with a tree out my window? I think in either case, just of in subjective experience, saying nothing about whether it's the absolute truth or not, which I can't know. I still feel I have some identification with whatever is experiencing
Hmm.
the thought or the image of the tree. Like that's uh it may not be true, but that's just like that's the place where I stand more often than not because I don't feel like I know how to have that experience without some identification, or at least I just haven't really experienced that in any lasting way.
Hmm.
Do you see that it's just a belief that you're holding, that when you're looking at a tree, the belief is that you are looking at a tree? So if you would just
Uh,
remove the belief, it would just be looking at a tree.
I guess I'm not totally sure how to remove the belief. Um,
Well, you need to see it. You need to see
uh,
that it's just a belief.
hmm,
So look at anything now in your direct experience,
okay.
and without thought, is there anyone looking at what you're looking at?
Hmm. Uh,
Without going to a mental conclusion.
I would say no. There's just what is appearing. I, I'm tempted to say no. There's just what I'm looking at. There's just what I'm looking at. But essentially,
And then the mind comes in and says, but I still feel like it's me. But
yeah,
that's the add-on that we're pointing to.
right. Hmm. Yeah, I think
So you're believing the add-on.
right. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, is this something that is just gonna unravel with time? Because when I hear you say it and I sort of focus in on it, I think that, I have some,
Well,
some sense of what you're getting at, but it is very fleeting, and
so this
yeah.
isn't something that's going to happen
Mm,
with a click of a finger. Um, by me pointing this out, and this whole thing unravels for you in a second. So this is a belief that needs to be broken by challenging challenging this belief over and over again. So seeing that there is an interpretation, that there's a story or a meaning or overlay on top of the raw experience of looking, and that this overlay is just a mental construct. So you keep challenging that belief. Is there really someone here looking at um, whatever you're looking at? And you keep looking. Look for the one who is looking. Is there anyone there? Or is it just a mental overlay, a belief?
Yeah. All right.
Eventually, gradually, what what can happen is that um, this ingrained, deeply ingrained belief that there is somebody there looking um, can loosen or loosen its stickiness. So right now, your mind is kind of playing a game, or perhaps you have some expectation that by seeing this once or twice or three times, that it should be gone. And that's how it works. But if we now kind of change that expectation a bit and says that this is something that needs continuous looking and challenging to kind of uh, become less sticky, then focus on that for a while.
Hmm.
Not move on to the next thing because this isn't happening the way you
Yeah.
expected it to happen.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point. And the thing that I guess what I was sort of talking to Vince about was th- that tackling this issue of identification, or kind of sitting with this one, is almost I um, I have this impression that it's maybe the next step down the road for me, whereas right now I'm just focusing on disidentifying from thoughts, and I'm not even doing that one consistently well enough. Like
What
I
does
guess
that
kind of
mean?
what I was um disidentifying from thought.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what will happen to me often is I'll be, you know, uh, in a situation that's relatively neutral. I'm not in any danger. I don't have any immediate really responsibilities, but I'll have this thought or this feeling that, things aren't good enough or things aren't as they should be, and it will like I'll start to feel unpleasant, unhappy, whatever. And so I guess for the moment, I'm kind of stepping back and identifying with something that's not the thought. I'm observing the thought. I'm making an object of it, and that grants me some measure of distance and peace. And it's not something I'm able to do all the time. It's still very much something that comes and goes. But then, as we're talking about, I'm still identifying with something. I'm identifying as the observer of thought, as opposed to, you know, the thought itself, um, which feels like an intermediate point. And it's just like, how much do I, there's disengaging from thought by identifying with the observer. Identification is still happening, and identification, I guess, as we're discussing, is possibly it is a type of thought as well, but I just I'm not sure I can do both things at once.
You see that the observer, what you call the observer, is also a thought. It's not an entity that is observing, but it's a thought
Y- I
about
do.
the previous thought.
Yes. So identification in general, I I guess I just see it as like one of the most deepest, like one of the deepest and most fundamental thoughts, right? One that I can't really, I think as we're discussing, it's going to take, some practice, some effort, what have you, just some close attention before it falls away. But right now, like the thoughts that cause me the most difficulty are things like I'm not good enough, my life is not as it should be, like I'm bad at this, I'm bad at that. And so those are the thoughts that I feel like are kind of intrude. I don't. They're just jumping into my experience frequently, and I'm trying to get some distance from those thoughts. Um, before I take a closer look at identification. I don't know. There's times where I feel like I'm at a very basic level of approaching this, and lately that's kind of how it's been feeling for me. But I don't know. I think I'm just sharing this to check if there's anything counterproductive happening, or if there's more blind spots that I'm missing. But I recognize also that there is, I'm what is it? I'm falling back to kind of an intermediate point here, um, because I think that might be maybe all I'm capable of at the moment. I don't know.
You see that that is a story that you
Oof.
believe in.
Um,
Like without that story right now, that that's what you're capable of, and what
yeah.
you just said. If you remove that from your mind, what is here?
Yeah. I I don't really know. I guess. um
I'm just pointing that out because you can see it as just a story. It's
yeah.
something your mind made up now to keep you digging in the same hole forever and
Hmm.
ever. You don't need that story. You can see it for what it is. You haven't gone back. There isn't any intermediary, or what you said.
Yeah.
It is right.
Intermediate point. Mhm.
Yeah, it's just right now. What's here is what's here. Everything else is a story.
Yeah. Well, I can't argue with that at all.
Yeah, but it's it's kind of an important point because, you know, the next time your mind offers up a story or an argument for you know, reasons why you should go into dissecting or understanding or doing something more to kind of get rid of your thoughts. That is the self creating momentum. But what is happening right now, here, now, without thought? If you get back to that, the stories die. You don't feed it momentum.
Hmm.
It's just raw experience. And then a new story might come up that you should be doing something more or something. And then, do you buy the ticket or do you just let it float?
Yeah.
The same principle it is with the, I'm not good enough, this and that. It's just old programs that has been installed that the mind is just playing and playing and playing and playing. And because you keep buying into the tickets of every ride, the mind tries to kind of lure you into, those feel real. It feels like it's you, but it's just
Yeah.
new rides passing by. And, do you engage or do you not?
Interesting. Yeah. So it's what so what seems to be happening now is that, I'm trying to figure out how to stop buying or stop trying to, buy these tickets for the I'm not good enough thought. So I'm sitting here in this meeting thinking about the future plan for how I'm going to address this the next time it happens. But that is
That's a
also
new
a
ride.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also a thought that's happening as I'm speaking to you. So,
Now you saw that. So you don't
yeah,
have to you don't have to go on that ride because you saw it. And that's the
yeah,
whole looking thing.
yeah. Well, yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I mean, in seeing all of that, there really isn't anything to do in this moment. But
Great.
Congratulations.
okay, so there's still this impulse, which is, a thought that like, but at some point this meeting is going to end and I'm going to stop
Yeah.
talking
That's a
to
new ride. That's a new ride. So you can
that
let that
isn't
pass
that is a
again.
new ride. But it is one that I guess I'm buying into because I'm just like, oh no, okay, but uh,
So this
yeah,
so it might be valuable to point out that, that's the mind trying to safeguard, like it's trying to prevent a future happening that isn't really existing in this moment, but it's trying to, like, I want to be safe from this not happening again. So I want to make sure that I need to do something so that this doesn't happen again. And that I need to do something creates further momentum.
yeah,
So then you're stuck on a ride again. You don't need to do anything if you just stop buying the tickets.
got you. Ah, all right. Well, that that's helpful. Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all.
And also just one last thing that I heard you say, Ray, is um, the belief in these stories, or like I'm not good enough and all of that, makes you feel bad. But I would look at if it might be the opposite. if it might start off as a bad feeling that spirals into I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Most of the time it is stories, or the emotions come first, and then the stories latch onto it. And yes, that can perpetuate new stories, but the start of that is usually um, an emotion or a sensational experience. So if you, um, so to speak, deal with the emotion stuff um, rather than the thought stuff, then that might be more productive. And what I mean by that is just seeing the emotion for what it is. It's not the label you slapped on it. It's just an energetic experience. And if it can just be allowed to be there without you distracting, or without you also holding it in place by, piercing your attention on it, just relax and let it be there as long as it wants to be there. Um, then this habitual movement of the mind trying to figure out the solution or whatever also tends to die down.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. As far as like the experience of energy, when I have these emotions or sort of troubling thoughts, I often will just sit in the physical sensation, and I'm not sure if that's kind of akin to what you're describing, or if that's off the mark, but that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, so there is a I talk to a lot of people who describes, sitting with emotions in a way that they kind of um, they kind of say that they're just sitting with it without wanting it to go away, but really they're sitting with it because they want to process it so it can go away. And that's not really what we're trying to do. Um, but I get that it's like I did that as well, and I get how it's confusing. Um, but what we want to the place we want to get to, so to speak, is that the sensational experience is not it doesn't have anything to do with us. We don't own it. It's just there, and so it's not it has nothing to do with us because there is no us here, right? So we want to get to a place where it can just be without needing to sit with it actively and just looking at it like it's like you're kind of just holding it in place with your attention by doing that.
Hmm.
But if we can just be while it's there, not distracting, that doesn't mean that you can't go off and do house chores or anything. We just mean that we're not trying to escape it, but we're also not trying to do anything with it. We're just letting it be as long as it wants to be there. It can be there. So it's
Yeah.
just like a relaxing of attention rather than trying to kind of drill down on it with our attention.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think my usual experience is I try to like sit quietly and feel the body, but I can definitely see how that's just giving it more attention. Like, I'm trying to address it in some way as opposed
Yes,
to uh, just allowing it to be there.
exactly.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
cool.
Thanks, everybody. Vince, I think you're muted.
Try that again. Tell us where you're up to, Jack, with this stuff.
Hi Vince, hi Marius, how you guys doing? Nice to meet you, Vince. That's a good question. I'm just kind of here to absorb. I'm kind of in a similar place with Ray almost. Um, Maybe getting just more comfortable, just being okay that it's kind of stupid and I don't get it, and yeah. Um, Recently seeing more increasingly that it's not just that like the emotion doesn't mean anything or it's just an energetic presence, it's that it doesn't mean anything to me because there is no me, which is kind of hard to understand more than just conceptually, but like do it long enough and it's getting easier maybe, sort of. Um, just figuring it out. Like
Okay.
today was kind of hard, but that's just the story. But that was felt reality, but that's also just the story. So I don't, you know, yeah, just living.
Do you get that nothing is static? Everything is always moving. Everything, even stuff like a lump of steel or a lump of concrete, there's atoms flying around doing their stuff. There is movement there. There is nothing can ever be without movement. That there are no nouns. There are only verbs. So if you consider the possibility that everything is a happening, I mean, it's easy to see when we apply that to something that's changed. We can say it's a happening because we have the idea that it was this and that now it's this, so it's changed. It's happening, but everything's a happening. Even stuff like your body, or the tree outside. They're all happenings. They can only exist because of movement. And everything that we can come up with in thought is about something. It's always a description or an explanation or a poor attempt to portray whatever it is. But it's not the thing itself, is it? It never can be. Thoughts can only ever point to something. No thought can think. It doesn't have that ability, does it? It just appears and goes away. That's the nature of all thoughts. But it's wrong to think of it as not here, now here, not here after that. But that's about as close as we could get to what actually happens, isn't it? It wasn't here, now it is, now it's gone. Even before I say now it's here, it's gone.
I just wanted to say thank you. I don't know yet if that was helpful, but I think it's something I'll maybe come back to. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Hi, Vince.
Hi, Tammy.
Can I ask?
Yeah, go for it.
Thanks. Um, yeah. So I'll just report back two things. I had some lots of sticky situations in the last few days. And a lot of what we spoke about kept coming up, so it was so good. There was two things that I wrote down to tell you, and it's good because my mind forgets. So I wrote it down. I jotted it down last night really fast. And the first thing was that we had spoken about the thoughts. So, I would be like, oh, I'll do something, and I would do it, whether it's saying something to someone or whatever. And then the mind would be like, what did you just do? What's wrong with you? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, no, you said to do it, and now you're saying that, just kind of like what we had spoken about, that the thoughts say to do it and the thoughts shame it. And I was like, yeah, been there, done that, see it, whatever. I don't know. I wasn't falling for it in that moment. I'm sure I will again. And the other thing was very, very sticky situations last night. Family gathering, nostalgic occasion. There's like cancer diagnoses and voices that have changed. Someone who used to be the person that sang and now they're getting older. Like, I was going into all these stories of like, oh my God, and now this and how this, either how beautiful or how nostalgic or how sad or how heart-wrenching, and this one might pass and this one, it's just very, very heavy situations. And a lifetime of this and a lifetime of that, a lot of very, very heavy things. And every time I was going to go either into that or into that, I was like, without that overlay and without comparing it to the whole life and how they were before and how, without the stories and stuff, do I need to go into that spiral of, oh my God, either adrenaline or whatever it is in any direction, into excitement, into despair? And it was just incredible because after 3 days, this was like an impromptu thing. And after, because they were going to be going through medical stuff in a few days. And so I quickly arranged it now. We've been talking about it for 2 months and I arranged it. And 3 days, I was morning till night organizing this stuff and running and lack of sleep. And it didn't matter whatever hit, I was like,
Ah,
bam, the stories, and then just not spiraling down. And I don't know how I handled it amazingly. Now, of course, these things will happen and my mind will always have a caveat. Sure, you have good days. You have days where you're wise and spiritual or whatever. But it was pretty amazing because I just didn't have to fall into the stories and cause intense suffering. One thing I did notice, though, is that there still was a desire or a joy about being so involved. In other words, calling my siblings and calling all the members and arranging the things and buying the small items that the person had requested, and just being so involved with everyone brought a lot of like
mm,
joy or satisfaction or ability for deep sleep afterwards. Like the body and mind kind of felt like fulfilled or exhausted or having been used their energies. And I don't always have that amount of use of all my faculties and body for so many hours a day. So there was like, I was wondering if that's also a story or if that's actually organic. Like the hormones on the body and whatever respond, and they need social connection. They need to be activated. I remember one of the spiritual people I listened to a while ago. He's actually a non-dual teacher. He said something about have a blue collar body. It needs to be exercised, and he would like go on his bike riding and stuff. Anyway, I was just wondering if like where the stories end, if there is like validity to the fact that like yes, maybe I do need to like activate more, be more social, have more projects. It seems to put me in a different mood, or I like to be useful or and active and connected and working with people on good projects. Is this just a story that was making me happy and fulfilled, or not? But I felt like I could take it or leave it. In other words, I wasn't it was more like noticing
Mm.
that it was fulfilling rather than like I must do this. But last night when it was over, I was like, I find this like fulfilling and exhausting in a good way. And so does this mean that like now every day has to be like this? Do I need this in my life? Or is that just a story? Or is that actually a physical need to be social in this? Anyway.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I loved hearing all of that. That sounds really good. Um, so I like that. That makes me feel good. Um, yeah. Look, what I what I come up with here is that it's so tempting to make something out of nothing.
Mm.
And that's what the stories are, that we make something out of nothing. We create a story and then we react to it like it was real, and then we're lost. We're down that path, that kind of thing. But you, I was going to say you're never going to be without stories, but some people are. But the point is, it's not a case of them not happening. It's a case of recognizing them for what they are and where they actually fit in. Right? So if they occur, now that will change as well. What stories that come up will start to be different stories, and then there'll start to be less of them, and so on. Those kind of things will also happen when we're not feeding stories with other stories. It's like although they're not tangible, they're not a noun, we can feed them. And, if we have a story about this, then all of a sudden that means that, and then we have a story about what that means, and away we go. We're off in a spiral of stuff. Well, you just stopped all of that spiral. I mean, it happened. When I shouldn't say you did it.
Mm-hmm.
It happened, right? And it happened because you had some new conditions in your life that added up to the possibility or the probability or the fact that they happened like that. And so it's not a case of, okay, now I've succeeded in kindergarten, let's go to the next class. That kind of thing will happen anyway, but that's by itself. You don't need to worry about that. Now, what you're doing sounds really good to me. And when you ask, is that a story? One way to tell is to simply look at is it about something? If it's about something, it's a story. And it's a fairy tale story. Even the really accurate ones are not 100% accurate. But I mean, most of the stories that we took to be real were nowhere near anything like what is actual.
Mm-hmm.
So keep playing with stories. I like what you're doing there. That's a good thing. Recognizing what used to happen, how you used to get off into a whole quagmire of horrible feelings, all because of the stories that came one after the other after the other.
I will say two things. One, it kind of, I don't know, I was wondering this and then I thought that's another story, but um, it kind of feels like I'm becoming a psychopath. In other words, to me, being deeply involved in what other people are feeling, I think I'm deeply empathic. I didn't realize this was a thing. I feel what other people feel and I go into their stuff. I give them intense attention and love, whatever it is, attention and feeling what they feel. And disengaging from the stories and from going at it. Like, it feels like if I'm not crying over this person with the cancer and the voice change, and now he's singing to his wife, but he's hoarse and like, and starting to cry, it feels psychopathic to me to like not go into that. It feels like I'm detached from humanity, like kind of how dare I just sit back and watch all these things and not feel them deeply?
Who
And I
said,
was thinking,
who said
but
you
then I
shouldn't
was
feel
like,
them deeply?
sorry.
Who said? Where did you get the idea that you shouldn't feel them deeply?
It was like when I wasn't going into the spiral, it felt like I'm a cold
Oh,
person or something.
yes.
Like, but
Okay.
then I thought to myself, no, I actually got along great with these people. Like, in other words, I did better. I did what they wanted. They appreciate. In other words, we got along well. It wasn't like no one felt like I was cold or unattached. I just wasn't
Yeah.
going into neediness or nostalgia or wanting to make something that wasn't there or going into some deep state that no one else is in, and like,
Mm.
in other words, I don't know, it was just
Without all those thoughts, Sammy, what was happening?
so that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, what is happening here? Well, there's a man singing to his wife, and if I don't think these are my parents or this is cancer or a week ago he sounded like that and now he's dying, without all those stories, it was just much simpler. But
Yeah,
and
stay
and
there.
that was amazing. Yeah. um and then the other thought was about stories that you had said none of them is accurate and stuff. I was thinking about that because a lot of what helped me get to this place before I started this non-dual stuff a few months ago, but helped me a bit start to disattach from them, was a psychological thing of analysis and stories of like I had been in self-blame and shame and guilt and all kinds of weird self spirals about my interactions with others and a lot of self-blame and stuff, and getting out of that involved a lot of like just YouTube videos about dysfunction, family dynamics, and how people could be mistreated or gaslighted. Like, there's all kinds of stuff. And um so on the one hand it's stories, on the other hand it, so maybe you would say it's not true, but it's a useful story. I don't know how to look at it, but I still find that I need to go into that a bit to remind myself of like, um people can be this or that. Don't fall into it, it's not your fault. I don't know, there's all kinds of stuff. So and people in abusive situations, like, is it useful to tell them stuff that I feel like I learned actual stuff? And like, even at yesterday's event, someone was crying and I was able to just say 3 sentences to help them out, but that was from 2 years of me intensely studying like these types of situations and knowing how to extricate my own mind from them, and now being able to help others. So I guess, where does psychological or thoughts can be useful in analyzing or looking at patterns and saying, oh yeah, that's that and this is this. You
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
So you're mixing two worlds, Sammy, and none of them are wrong. Um, so in psychology, what you can do is you can tr change the story. So the story that you have, um, which can feel destructive, you can change that story with another story, a better story that makes you feel good. But that doesn't, it's still it's still the self having a story,
Right.
right? So yes, you can, you know, on a psychological level, you will probably feel better. So psychology is not wrong, but if you're trying to do that at the same time as you're trying to dismantle the self structure, you're kind of working against, like, it's two things working in opposite directions. So, you know, maybe
I,
if it's really intense for you, it's good to do some psychological work so you kind of can calm down a bit. But at some point, if if you really want to go down this non-duality road and you want to dissolve the self, then you need to see what psychology ultimately is, and it is propagating the self or stabilizing the self structure. So you're kind of stabilizing and dissolving at the same time, and that's not going to work.
It just seems that recognizing, I would say recognizing people's patterns of lies, manipulation, abuse, guilt, like kind of stuff like that is a useful thing to recognize and to be able to point out to
Why?
others. I don't know, it seems
Why?
to end suffering. There was a lot of spiraling into suffering that ended when those things were realized, for myself and for others. As I learned, I was able to point it out to other people, and they got out of difficult stuff and realized stuff and were released from it.
What's behind you wanting to help other people?
Yeah.
Seeing suffering and wanting to end it. I mean,
All right. Who's suffering?
or seeing untruth and wanting to set it right. So all these things.
All
Wait,
of
you're
that is the
smiling.
self.
Okay, so all of that is the self.
Yeah.
There's
I
nothing
don't.
wrong with that. I'm just pointing out that that whole movement is the self movement.
So why is that the self movement and not just life happening? In other words, or are there skillful things that we can do, like taking out the garbage or helping someone see the truth and not suffer? Is it not all? Okay, you're smiling, but I don't know why.
There's just so many ways I could come at this, but I'm not sure which one to go
Drop it all on my
over.
brain.
If if you magically now could just drop all the questions you have forever, what would be here?
Right now in this room, like where I am now, or in general,
Just
bit meta.
life in general. Like if you stop trying to figure out everything, is this the right thing to do? Is that the right thing to do? How can I do this? Should I do this? Should I do that? If all of that stopped,
That has never been my experience, but I will try to imagine. Um, well, from what you guys say, life goes on. So I assume I will make a cup of something and go do a something, and sometimes obsess about a something, and other times just do a something. I
Oh, that,
assume.
that's Tammy. That's somebody else's story. Don't tell us that one.
Oh,
What
okay. That was a
your
good one. All right.
original, your original imagination say, not what you've heard. I mean, that might affect it, but that's not it. What you feel. What can you find that's left?
If I had no more questions, or if I couldn't ask them, I
Well,
like.
if there were no more questions there.
Well, why were there no more questions? Because I was settled and they were answered, or because I was like, I have to set the stage to understand my psychological profile, where I'm coming from in that moment.
Right. And so without any of that, what would be left?
I don't know. That's been my entire life. I don't know. I can try and guess, but
Right
until
now,
the mind stops, I don't know what will be.
right now in your experience of this moment right now, you've got the experience of your body, you're experiencing certain thoughts turn up, you're
Mhm.
experiencing whatever it is you're experiencing. If you removed, just pretend, right? Just pretend that no thought makes any sense. So let's say something scrambled it. The thought process ends up spewing out rubbish. Blah, 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 blah. That's all that comes out, right? So that's as close as you might get to no thoughts. What's left? You're going to stop breathing? You're going to suddenly be lying on your back on the floor? Will anything happen at all other than what's happening?
It sounds like I'll be a robot if I can't think.
Oh, okay.
That's the story.
Like I wouldn't be me. I don't know.
Ah, well, that's true. You wouldn't be you. Mm. But the only thing that's missing are your thoughts.
Yeah, but that's where I live my entire life.
So
That's
you
the
are your
dream.
thoughts.
I
Wait,
just want
both
to
of you
point
said
out,
something. Yeah.
yeah, I just want to point out, Tammy, that you're attached to the dream that you're saying right now. That's where I'm living my life, and that you're living in the dream. You are
The
attached
dream
to
is
it.
the images and the thoughts and the sounds.
All the thoughts that you're kind of creating on top of raw experience. All the meaning that you want to help people and you want to lessen suffering for others and yourself, and you want to
And
this thing that
you are empathic.
yeah, and that you feel other people's feelings. Like, I'm not saying that's true or not true. I'm just saying that that is
That's what you're
the
identifying with.
story.
Mm.
This meaning making on top of raw experience, meaning that doesn't exist outside of your head.
It feels like without that, what would be the point?
No, you're jumping ahead, Tammy. You're jumping off into another story here.
Okay.
Can you, if I say these words, your butt on the chair, right? I presume you're sitting. Are you sitting down?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So your bum on a seat.
Mm-hmm.
When I say those words, can you feel something you might call pressure?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe can you feel has it got a element of heat to it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're feeling that, what are you doing? You kind of, we use the word looking, but you're not really using your eyes, but your focus is going to where you imagine your backside is and that seat is, right? But you only imagine the backside and the seat, don't you? You can't see it. You have, there is a feeling there, but you know, to call it a certain feeling is not a very good description because it's much too complex for any single label. That the actual feeling, and you can't say it's your bum, and you can't say it's a chair. You don't feel all of that. All you feel is this thing we call pressure, and that doesn't really describe it very well, does it? But there, in that, looking at that feeling, are you doing that?
Yep.
Look at that feeling. Stories are additional on top of that. Stories that turn up about what it might mean. They turn up and attach themselves to that feeling. But that direct experience that Marius was talking about is the feeling and nothing else. There's nothing else beside that. And yet there's sensations. Maybe the back of your back is touching the chair, and there might be a sensation there, but you weren't aware of it until I mentioned it. And when you do think of the way your back might be touching the chair, you're not thinking of your bum on the chair anymore, are you? So what it's not what is actually there, it's where you put your focus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all there is. There's nothing here. As soon as you add a story to that, add anything to it, any meaning, what does it mean? Oh, that's my bum on the chair. Well, that's a story. What's actually there is a feeling.
But even putting your attention on something and that changing, like you said, you don't notice X until you put attention on it. In other words, it's interesting to me why you say that the sensation is more real than images and thoughts. None of them are tangible or seeable. And yet you say that is reality and that is not reality. It's interesting to me why the sensation of butt on chair that no one can see and no one could whatever is more real than thoughts and emotions and the stories in the head. It's interesting to me because they all seem to take place in
Yeah.
the head. So I
All
don't know
right.
why you call one real and one not.
Okay, I can go along with that. No, I never actually said one is real and one's not, but I'll go along with what you're saying, and what we can say is that your experience of that feeling, that sensation, is actual. How you arrive at that's another story, but that is actual, and the fact that your thoughts exist is also actual, but what they're about is not.
Actual but not factual.
That's a good way to put it. I like that. Yes. I'll write that down and reuse it. I love it.
Mm.
But so we're not talking about what's real or not real here. We're talking about what's useful and not useful, maybe more so. I kind of stumbled a bit on that one. It's maybe it's
But
what
Your
I think you're
suffering,
saying,
your suffering isn't in raw experience. Your suffering is in thought, in stories. And I guess that's why you're here, because
which is what I said at the beginning, just meaning, in other words, that I was at the party without the overlay of stories and it was much less easier, much more easier, much less
Mhm.
suffering.
so something happened. So
Yeah.
right now the idea to not get lost in story came after you realized that there was either you were already lost or there was the potential to get lost. But the idea came up that you didn't have to get lost in it. And so that consequently that changed and you didn't.
Yeah. It was good. It was fun.
Experience
Hmm.
was different. That's right. Yeah. And that's all about our relationship to thought. So in the beginning, what we've got to say is, look, you're a slave to your thoughts, and you run around believing every thought is right because you've had it, and you do it automatically, and that's where all the suffering is, right? Then, so what we say is, let's not be a slave to our thoughts. Let's actually recognize the rubbish nature of most of our thoughts, and once we break that connection, we've got a habit to deal with. Right. And that's a lot of what Ray was talking about, the habit of old things that turn up. And they turn up because they've been habituated to them. They've been there forever and ever. Right? So that's why it's slow to change some of those things. They don't happen all of a sudden. They can, but they don't necessarily because habit kicks in. And so what we're doing is we've got to recondition. We've got to decondition the old conditioning and recondition a new way. Right? And the new way is much less story invested than what it used to. I won't say it's not at all, of course,
Hmm.
but we're not a slave to it anymore. That's the difference. And you had that experience. Now that was a good thing. Now, just if the fact is that the old way turns up again, that's no big deal. It's just another opportunity for you to recognize what's happening, and that will change it. It's not a case of not doing it. It's a case of seeing what triggers it.
Yeah. And I thought of what you said, Vince. You had said at the end of last session, you said to me something like, every single thing you're going to go through is it and is the opportunity. Like you're exactly in the right place. And so anytime anything went wrong, quote unquote, I was like, oh, this isn't wrong. This is life bringing me the obstacle course I need to wake up. And then I could like not go into the story. It was
Well,
really fun. So thank you. But yeah. Um,
you got to
all
watch the
right.
video too. Now, because you're doing that, that is excellent, really good stuff. It's also there's also an inbuilt trap into that, and that is that you can identify with a person that's not doing it and create and weave a whole lot of more sophisticated stories around that. But I want you to do nothing more than recognize that possibility as it's going on.
Wait, you lost me there?
Okay. Look for the simplicity in it. That's what I'm saying, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Keep it simple. All right. And yeah, and I know it was just, that day that it happened and that it worked or whatever, and I'm sure I'm going to go into my usual craziness. So,
Yeah.
what
Do
would
you
I
see
take with me?
do you see that there was a belief there that activated the going into story again, Tammy? That you said something like, I should be feeling what other people are feeling, or I should be engaged with this, that, and the other because that's basically what a good person does, or something like that. I
What I
felt
said
like you.
before about being a psychopath. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that belief is what set in motion the stories again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's
That
nothing.
I want to be kind and empathic and all this. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's just a belief. You know,
If
if
you
But
feel
isn't that
that'll
a useful one
happen.
for humanity?
sorry,
Isn't that a useful one for people to have, to be kind and nice to others?
well, you'll likely find that you'll still be kind and nice to others without stories.
Awesome. We can move on then.
Yeah.
Very good.
uh, all right. So what do I take with me now for this week?
You don't lose your personality. It'll persist. It's just not driven by the rubbish that it used to be driven by.
Mm-hmm. So is this a good line to just keep seeing stories as they arise and see if I want to get sucked into suffering in the moment or not?
Yeah. Oh, yes, yes. What you're doing, keep doing it. It's great. I love it.
Anything else in case that fails? Backup plan?
Backup plan is recycle to number one and do it all again.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
I wanna put in again this question that I asked and kind of have you remind yourself of that, Tammy. If I stop asking questions, if I stop wanting to know what the next thing is and the next thing, then what's here? I think that's a good one to take with you.
The mind says boring, mundane. That's what I'm hearing.
Exactly. And if you believe that, it will continue on forever.
Another way to put it that might or might not be accurate is for me to ask is will the world keep going if you stop managing it?
Oof. It's a tough one. Um, the assumption was no, but seeing you guys kind of move around, not really, but still be alive, I assume possibly yes.
Okay. Well, that's something for you to discover.
Yeah. Meaning,
Well, ask yourself, how is the question I asked the same as the one that Marius asked? And they are the kind of the same. What I'm doing is adding an extra story to it about what might be behind it.
okay, wait, I'm lost.
Mm.
It was kind of not the same also. It's I was trying to get your mind to stop moving on to the next and the next and the next and the next and the next. I just want to stop. Just stop. That's it.
I can for a second. It just then comes in again.
Yeah. And then hopefully you will remember at some point this conversation, and then you'll stop again, and then you'll forget, and then you'll remember, and then you'll stop again. And then hopefully the stopping will become more frequent.
Is that different than me seeing stories and not going into them?
It's kind of the same thing, same function.
Okay. Yeah, because when you say stop, I stop breathing and moving and trying not to think. So I'm like, oh God, am I stopping? But yeah,
I'm
but if I
just
can go
pointing
back,
at the
yeah.
tendency of the mind trying to grab onto the next thing it can kind of create some movement with.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, because you're identified with the mind, you feel like it's boring
Yeah,
not
sad
to
and
keep,
boring.
yeah. And, you know, well, honestly, it can be a bit boring sometimes, but it doesn't mean that you have to stop thinking forever. It just means that you need to see it for what it is, so you don't believe that you have to, that you are thoughts.
Yeah, right now it kind of felt like the last couple of days, when there was intense stuff going on, it felt like I kind of had the choice if I want to go into spiral of suffering or not. Like, so it didn't feel like, oh no, I had a lobotomy. It was like, okay, this is rising. I could go, and I felt the adrenaline start. I could spiral into it, or I could just not, and then it would just kind of collapse, and I would just move on. But
Yeah, but this story about it being boring, it is really the mind trying to keep itself going,
mhm.
trying to keep up the momentum. And when it starts to get silent, it feels uncomfortable.
So then,
Which
why
it
are we doing this?
gets. You tell me. Why are you here?
Yeah. So it gets uncomfortable, and then what?
Well, then you either um, go back into the mind and continue doing what you've always done your whole life, or you challenge the boredom and see if it's actually a problem. And sooner or later, the boredom isn't boredom, it's something else. Emptiness, facing emptiness can be a big challenge for many people because we've had so much content keeping the mind busy, entertained all the time. So when that um, doesn't happen anymore or gets challenged, can you mute yourself, Jack? Um, it, it can feel really, yeah, empty, like meaningless, because there is no meaning, and the mind hates that. So it feels horrible, um, or can feel horrible for the mind, or well, yeah, for the body mind. Maybe it's more accurate to say. And if you're not able to kind of challenge that, and if you run back into the mind again, you're likely to be stuck there. You're so addicted to the highs and the lows of the mind that the middle ground feels almost unbearable. But it only feels like that because you've been addicted to the highs and lows.
Yeah, boredom is an escape routine.
Sorry, boredom is an escape routine?
Yep.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what happens when you get bored is your mind goes crazy looking for something to do, doesn't it, to alleviate the boredom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a way of avoiding some discomfort that's hovering around there.
Mm. You mean saying I'm bored and looking for something is avoiding
Something else, yeah.
discomfort? Mm-hmm.
But let's not get lost in story about what that something could be. Just recognize that it's the mind saying, I want stimulation. And it'll do that, whatever it can to get that, including and most likely creating stories to get involved with.
What if we
New,
clean the house? Is that in other words, what if we do physical movement or do an activity
Well, that
or
can
just
also be a distraction, same as boredom, a way of getting away from something uncomfortable.
so what
it depends on why you're doing it. Are you doing it because you're bored, or are you doing it because it's messy and it needs to be done? You can kind of feel into the different energy of that.
is there are you saying it's valuable to sit with boredom and not do anything?
Yeah. And
And
while you do that, watch the mind.
yeah, or not.
Why can't I watch the mind while I'm doing stuff, like at the party?
You Nobody say you can't do that. But also, why did you ask that question? Why couldn't you stay with challenging the boredom?
Because it felt like another um
Another question?
like now I have to like are you saying I shouldn't do so much stuff in life and just sit and like feel boredom?
Oh, you're talking about inducing boredom.
What?
There could be value in that if you were to describe it as, say, taking something back to the lab to look at. But essentially, I'd say, no, don't go doing that. You don't need to go and induce boredom. There's enough stuff in life for you to look at without creating stuff. But if boredom turns up, that's a different story.
And again, I don't know if you caught that time, and Jack also pointed this out now. What I wanted to get to is I want you to see this tendency to come up with new questions, new stuff that gets you out of now.
What do you mean, Jack, by your mind might be trying to scare you in this moment?
I think that it's possible that you're scared right now, but your mind is throwing up as many stories of I'm a psychopath. I'm not going to be human. I'm going to be bored all the time. And I don't think that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now you are sitting in your room on a computer and that's it. Everything else is a story.
Mm-hmm.
But that's scary. And I get that.
I guess maybe it's hard to differentiate between, like, if I have a thought, oh, let me get up and do this or that. Is that a story, or is that, like, I think I'm getting confused in it, but
Okay, that's a good one, Tammy. That's a really good point. Right. You 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 believe a myth. That's what you just told me. And you believe the myth that that getting up and doing something was caused by having the thought to get up and do something. It was not. The thought came after the impulse to get up and do something. That's what you need to notice. That's an experience you need to have. That's what will change that belief. The belief that thoughts cause things to happen is the biggest load of bullshit I've ever come across. It doesn't happen like that.
really?
You will have the impulse to get up and clean, and then your brain will tell you, will notify you. It'll send you a notification that said, "Oh, get up and clean." But you will have the impulse to do that before you have the thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really, really big one. To believe that thoughts cause things is one of the biggest problems we have with this delusion uh, that we call consensus reality. Believes that thoughts cause action. Thoughts happen parallel to action, if you like, but they always come after.
Okay.
Have you come across the research? You'll find it on Google, and I'll get a link for you if I can, um, where they actually put people in an MRI machine and ask them to press red or green buttons or make a decision about this or that. And the person watching the machine knows what they're going to do before they know what they're going to do. The brain works out what's going to happen and then notifies the person. And there's a significant delay between the brain knowing and the person knowing. But that's a scientific experiment that's been done again and again and again for the last 20 years. So
So, so you're saying kind of like even those thoughts about I'm doing this and this is the empathic thing to do and da, da, da. So just like you're not saying I won't be kind or nice, you're just saying that these things will happen and it's not me doing them, and to just not buy into those thoughts so much, like notice them, but it's not necessarily true.
it's kind of like that. Yeah. Yeah. That's not a bad way to put it. Those things will happen, and it doesn't require a mental framework before it happens to make it happen. In fact, you'll do those things in the future for sure. You'll do those things without having any thoughts about doing them, and there'll be no looking back and saying, "Oh, Tammy was empathic in that situation." It'll just be a process of stuff that happens. So but I want to emphasize that point. That thing that if I picked it up right, what I heard you say was you believe that thoughts cause action, and they don't.
Are you sure? Sure.
Absolutely, 100% sure.
Mm-hmm. And also, in your experience this moment, do you feel that you're hovering somewhere and watching a Vince talk to a Tammy, or do you feel like it's you talking?
Neither of those. Uh, I can hear talking happening, but I don't know anything else about it.
Mm-hmm.
no, yeah. See, so that's important stuff too, because they're your fantasies about how things should be or what they might end up being, and the consequence of that is that you head off down all these wrong paths looking for that, and it's just not even close. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I don't know anything about what you guys' experiences might be, but I do know that the instructions to or the possibility of looking at stories as they arrive and as they arise and recognize them has been useful. So I'm going to take that with me now. Anything else?
Not that I can think of, but I'll just look up a link for you while you're doing that.
And thanks, Jack. I was going into a little bit of fear stories, so thanks for calling that out. And then, like, who's talking and who's doing. So I shouldn't go into stories or thoughts about that. Just watch it happen as I move and talk.
Yep. Watching it is huge, really big thing. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got a couple of links here, so I'll just put one up in the chat for you. I mean, without even reading it, these things have been around for so long.
Hmm. 11 seconds before. Wow. That's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take those times literal. They're going to vary from person to person as well. But yeah, what it shows is that there is the brain it may not specify, but the brain looks at all of the information coming in through all of the senses, so its current conditions, right, and then also includes everything it's learned in the past, the historical stuff, and it puts all of those things, all of those circumstances get lined up together, and then a decision gets made: will I or won't I, red or blue or whatever it is, and then after that, consciousness gets notified. That's a funny way to put it, but that's about as accurate as I could be. So then the person knows, oh yeah, I'm going to press the red button. And if they believe what you believe, they'll say, I decided to press the red button. Well, they didn't decide. The brain decided.
Hmm.
But I think, Tammy, it's nice to have a study like this, but y- you would essentially be just adopting a belief if you don't confirm this for yourself in your own experience.
How can I confirm that it happened before I noticed something? In other words, how do you guys sense this is true? Like,
Okay.
how
Well,
do
what comes to mind immediately is your example of you're sitting on the lounge, and the thought turns up to get up and clean.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment that thought turns up, what we want is another thought to turn up that says, using memory, did you have the impulse to clean before the thought turned up? And if that question turns up, you might say, oh, I don't know, but I'll be more alert next time to see what happens. And you offered opportunities like that all the time. Will I have a drink of water? Did the impulse to reach for the glass happen before mine says have a drink of water? Right.
It's
So everything all day, every day, you'll be given the opportunity to see that the impulse to do things is there before the thoughts turn up about it. and you just have to get sensitive enough to notice.
So you've had the experience where your body will do stuff before you had a thought, I should do that? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah. Or I can see that the thought to have a drink got triggered by the fact that my gaze fell on a glass on the sink.
And that's not true?
No, it is true. So I happened to see a glass. Now I happened to see all sorts of other things, but I didn't take notice of any of the other things. But the glass jumped out at me, and when that glass jumped out, I then realised that I was thirsty, and so I went to have a drink. Somewhere in amongst that was the thought, but it wasn't the originator.
Mm-hmm. But it kind of feels like you're saying the body's on automat, and it's kind of like mindfulness. When people go into like mindfulness, is about being aware of each thing, but you're saying the body can move without us being aware of it. You're not saying without being aware of it, you're saying without thinking about it or
Absolutely.
claiming ownership.
When was the last time you thought about how to place the next foot that you lifted off the ground as you walked? Where to put it down, whether to put the heel down before the the ball of the foot down, whether to stretch it out further or make a shorter step. When was the last time you thought about going around the coffee table in the lounge room instead of bumping your shin into it? When was the last time all that stuff happens automatically? You don't think about it. You don't even know you've done it. Can you actually remember the last time you walked across the room to where you're sitting now? I'll bet you can't remember exactly how many steps you took or where you put them, or did you even think about it? No, you didn't. You just did it.
Mm-hmm.
So all day, every day, you're giving examples of how the body does what the body does,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't require thought.
And then what is that piece about mindfulness? Like take these mindful meditation walks and notice how your foot is placed and notice your breathing.
Oh,
Like
look, for that one, yeah, no, you'll have to send me $1,000 to know that one.
mm,
Yeah, no, look, mindfulness is an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, it, my understanding of mindfulness is it's a case of training the mind to be aware of the mind.
yeah.
It's what I would call metacognition. So, it's not about being aware of something. It's about being aware that you're aware. But at
Yeah.
the same
And
time,
that's helpful
if you
to prevent us from going into stories, or does it have
yeah,
other use?
I was going to say that at the same time, if you practice mindfulness, you will recognize when you go into stories, and you'll recognize that they're stories.
Yeah.
But then again, I bet you there's a lot of people in the world that identify as a mindful person. And that's not to say it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I'm getting, Tammy, that you've changed gears with this whole stuff, that your recent experience has revealed to you possibilities, and all of the stuff that we've talked about today, that's all there as seeds that might germinate or not, and you'll just continue on the trajectory that you're going, which is great, absolutely perfect. Couldn't be better. If I tailor-made something for you, it would be, and I was God, it would be exactly what you've got right now happening.
Hmm. All right. So just continue seeing the stories and watching if I fall into it or not.
Yep.
And that's going to be a value here.
Yep, yep, yep. And ask yourself what you're feeling from time to time as well.
What I'm feeling,
Yeah.
for what purpose.
Not
Notice.
yeah, yeah. Okay. And looking to get have an experience about what you're feeling, not to be able to narrate a story about it, but looking to what is the actual experience, right? And straight away, my thoughts went then to bum on chair.
Mm-hmm.
What does it feel like?
Yeah.
Oh, back against chair. Oh, okay. Oh, and temperature, I can feel. Oh, should I turn the air conditioner up a bit? Oh, oh. The air I'm breathing in feels a little bit warm.
I think I had that a few times, I think, where I noticed that I'm going into something, an activity or a frantic activity, the mind, or reaching out to other people or going to story. And I was like, what am I avoiding? And I realized a lot of times it was a physical pain. And then I was like, wait, is it so bad? Can I actually feel it in this moment? Is it so bad that I need to go and create a drama in order to avoid the sensation? But, and sometimes the answer was no. And sometimes the answer was painkiller. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it was
And
interesting.
that's fine. Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah.
All right.
You objectify things. You see it from outside. That's excellent. And that's all anti-storytelling stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even though we're telling stories about not telling stories.
Yeah. And all right, I won't get into more thoughts, but like in other words, if I call something pain or if I call something stuff, I guess I shouldn't put too much restrictions on stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, just remember what I said about labels. Labels are a really simplistic notion about things. So whatever you call them, whatever that label is that comes up when you call something something, means that you're not even close to it. You're only at a really, really superficial level. And
Yeah.
to get to closer to what it actually is means leaving behind words and description and stories altogether and going into the experience of what you're feeling without knowing what it is, without being able to communicate it, just to the actual feeling, the actual sensations, the
Yeah.
actual experience of it.
And I don't need to force myself to like sit with a stomach ache or backache. Like I can go
No,
and take a medicine or something, in other words, or take a walk. I don't have to force myself to stay and sit and feel it or something.
that's right. You don't. No.
Yeah.
So there's again, perhaps a future thing to consider, but I'll mention it now anyway, and that is that if you ask your gut, as just as a metaphor, way to put it, if you ask your gut what's going on, which way to move, what to do or not to do, you can get in touch with a subtle feeling of, is it avoidance or is it a positive thing? Is it what is it? Am I just escaping or am I actually investigating? Those kind of things can come in a very muted tone from your gut. So whatever it is that you find happening, you can ask your gut, what's behind it? What's the impetus?
I
And then,
also just
yeah, go on.
Vince, I just want to point out that that can also be a very like a huge trap because you can be that can become a mental thing.
Yes.
Like I'm asking the questions and then that's the self asking the gut. And
Yeah, yeah.
what I kind of want for Tammy now is stopping that mental movement.
All right. So you get that, Tammy? Just stop.
So if I'm sitting here, my back is hurting or stomach hurting, you're saying not to investigate it. Just in other words, you're saying don't go into the mind and start thinking about what is a story, what is not. Just kind of be aware that that's going on and then notice what the body does next rather than
Yep.
go into kind of stories or questions or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, because what it actually is always different to what it seems to be. And you might get to the point where you go, this requires a painkiller. Fine. There's no problems with that.
Or like now, if I want to get up and move because I'm stuck and my back is hurting, is that a distraction or is that just
Doesn't
fine
sound
to just
fine to me.
move along life?
But again, that's what I'm saying. Keep in mind what Maria said, but ask your gut, not ask your gut for a mental whatever. Just ask your gut. Is it what's going on here? If your back's hurting because you've been sitting for a while, it's absolutely perfectly reasonable to move and ease it. But if your back's hurting as a way to get you to do something or not do something, well, that's a different story, isn't it? And it's literally a story there. So
Yeah, and I think
how
you're
do you know the
creating something out of nothing, Tammy. Would you actually ask yourself that? Would you actually ask yourself, is this a story, or like asking that is the story? Like if you were uncomfortable, the body would move. You wouldn't need to analyze what is right or wrong in that situation. That is the selfing.
Or should I be sitting here and feeling the sensation? Like,
That's the selfing. You
right.
don't need to analyze your actions.
Okay. So just watch the actions and watch the stories.
Mm, what did I miss something that Vince said? Maybe I don't know. You don't need to watch the actions, or I don't know if you said something along those lines, Vince. But
no? Tammy's a control freak. She's got to have something to do. She won't let you go until she gets homework.
yeah.
Vince is not wrong.
But I still love you, Tammy. I really do.
It is mutual, Vince. Thank you.
And you know what Vince said isn't wrong, but I will maybe perhaps rephrase from asking your gut to feel into your gut, because asking it that
Yep.
sets up a
Mm-hmm.
mental
Yeah,
journey.
it wants narration as an answer. Yeah, I get that. That was a
You're
good.
saying go into sensation rather than thought. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Does it feel like a yes or does it feel like a no?
About decisions, you mean?
Yeah. Without needing to go off to analyze storyland, weighing this or that option. Or should I
Mm-hmm.
be doing this or shouldn't I be doing this?
And is the body contracting and saying no because of a psychological reason? In other words, you can start to, get into that. And is it resistance or
Yeah.
secondary gain or should I be doing that? In other words, but
Yeah, but right now that's too. See,
that'll
you'll either
complicate.
you'll either do it or not anyways. So all of those things will just be
Mm-hmm.
extra.
Mm-hmm.
Like even
Mm-hmm.
if you conclude one way or the other, the body will decide if you will do it or not. It's not the thoughts.
Hmm. Really interesting. You don't think panic and spirals and whatever cause things? It's just the body decides.
Well, panic happens.
Well, yeah, in the body. It's
But
the
those are caused by
interpretation of
thoughts
the
and stories.
it's in no, the panic is a physical thing, and then well, it's not even that. So something happens in the body that is interpreted as panic, and from there,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
thought process is happening.
So I don't need to dissect that thought and call it panic and then say, am I bad? Am I good? Is this panic? What is it caused by? Is there the just being like, oh, the body's doing this. Let's take the next logical step kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not even less. Let's take the next logical step because that will happen.
People do that. Mm-hmm. Okay. No, I
So,
like it. I like, yeah.
you know, I always find it a bit challenging to point in these groups because something is relevant for someone that isn't relevant for someone else, and then you confuse, you end up
Mm-hmm.
confusing someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of I wanted to break in earlier and just say that you need to realize that this conversation, it's not you having that conversation, but the identification here is that you think it's you having this conversation,
Yes, I really do think so.
when
Like,
in reality it's just conditioning responding to conditioning or conditions.
mm,
And I don't know if that is too early to kind of put that in there, because a lot of the stuff we've been saying is it can be helpful, but what we're essentially doing is we're the conditioning here, and whoever has been talking today has been influencing the conditioning there. There is no one here or there. And what that means is, no matter what you think you're taking away from this conversation, has nothing to do with actually gets taken away from this conversation. That's already installed now. But the mind might have other ideas.
hmm.
And I'm pointing that out to point out that you're not in control of what will happen, no matter what you think of it.
So you're saying most of the stuff happens subconsciously, not on the level of narration or awareness.
I'm saying
And then we blame
all
it.
of the stuff, even subconsciously, it's a story, right? I mean,
But I
like,
thought that's what you're saying, that it happens not on the level of awareness and
yeah,
narration.
yeah. So you can say it like that, but like the label subconscious is just a concept. But let's not get into that. It's okay to think of it that way. Yes. The value in what I just said is just that
Just to be aware that, again, the thoughts will claim ownership of the process and whatever, and like what was taken away from here and all that.
Yeah, and just I get the sense that not only for you, but for a lot of people that come to these meetings, there is just this, oh, I need to remember this. I need to remember to do this. And it's like it's not up to you. What sticks will stick. What was right for your set of conditions is those things has already stuck. What was extra, you're not going to take away after the meeting. And that's okay because it was perfect.
But what if I write things down?
Yeah, but what if it's not right for the system? Like, how many times have you read a book or read something you wrote down that you still can't remember because your system or your conditions isn't right to save that yet. It's not the right piece to put in the puzzle.
Yeah, yeah. And I have this thing where if you write something down, you give your mind permission not to remember it.
Yeah.
Can I just drop in? A few minutes ago, Mario said something, and I wanted to say, "Oh, as an atheist, God, please let me remember this." And I don't know what it was anymore.
Exactly. Perfect.
But see, this is the brilliant thing. You don't need to remember it because it's already changed you.
Yeah. Or
Don't
not.
know what it was. It will come when the time comes. It will come again.
Exactly. And when you say, oh, me remember this, you're also saying, oh, I recognize that this resonates. This is significant. So it's already done its job. You don't need to remember it or recall it.
Marius, let me ask you one more question.
Mhm.
When I walk around, this is one of the things that bothers me a lot. When I walk around and see suffering, and now you're saying that conditioning just responds to conditioning. And then I think I raised this before, but like I watch children being conditioned in ways that are going to cause intense suffering
Mhm.
throughout the lifetime. And it brings me tremendous suffering to watch this happen to tiny new beings. And this is something that causes, so like at the party yesterday, I was able to get out of some stories of suffering regarding adults and regarding end of life and regarding illness and regarding nostalgia. But with children, watching them being programmed in terrible ways, it just seems like such a waste and such a suffering, and like it could be done so differently. And I don't know how to get out of that suffering. And that's where I feel kind of like a psychopath, like to not have any feeling about that and just be robotic about it. I don't know exactly, but how do you not have suffering, watching intense suffering being needlessly happening and conditioning being laid down that is going to cause tremendous suffering? And whether it's food patterns, thought patterns, sleep patterns, shame patterns, untruths, it just is watching like, I don't know, it just gets to me on a deep level. So like I can get out of a lot of stories, but that's one that's really hard for me.
I mean,
Well,
when you watch something like this, you do suffer, but your job is to deal with your own suffering.
you can say that, but I also want to point out that all of what you just said is your interpretation of what is going on. It's a story.
Yeah.
No matter where you go with this, it is. It is your interpretation. It is I'm not saying it's accurate or inaccurate. That's not what I'm pointing to. I'm pointing to that there is something happening and you're giving meaning to what is happening based on your set of conditions. And
But isn't suffering no matter my conditions? In other words,
no, but what I'm saying is you need to see that you are creating your own suffering, or the interpretation is creating the suffering. And we can also go into discussing the belief that you have some sort of control to change that, or you have the role or the responsibility to change the world, or and all of that stuff. That's also relevant to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, you need to see that the suffering is the interpretation.
Yeah. What comes up for me is that we can reframe this a little bit to make it more accurate, and that is that when I see, let's for example, the starvation in Gaza, right? I don't suffer, I feel pain, because that's my primary first person encounter with those images or whatever it is, right? And my reaction to that, which is due to my conditioning, etc., is to feel really intense, unpleasant emotion. I would call that pain. Now, I get that I can't be completely without stories about it, but I don't tell myself the story that it could be different or that it should be different. What I'm relating to in the body is me experiencing something that I imagine that they're experiencing, which of course I can't. I can't even get close to that. But that is, I would say, a primary response, and that's pain. That's not suffering. Suffering comes after I tell myself stories about how it should be different, how it shouldn't be the case, who's at fault, why it's wrong, all of those things. And when I respond to those stories, that's suffering. Well, that doesn't happen. There is just this exquisite agony about the fact that it exists. So I would say it's more accurately described as pain rather than suffering. Suffering is when I get involved in the stories about how it should be different.
But I think Marius was saying something else. He was saying beforehand, me thinking that people are suffering is even a story.
I'm pointing out that
Thinking it is.
yeah. So I'm
So you
pointing
don't
out
try to,
before thinking happens, there is no suffering. Before the interpretation of what you're seeing happens in the form of thoughts and stories, there is no suffering. And why that is valuable to see is that you see that by engaging in those stories, you are engaging in your suffering, which is, I don't want to say a choice, but when you see
yeah,
this clearly, there is
yeah,
there is a seeming choice to not engage or to stop feeding those
mhm.
stories.
But it feels like complete lack of empathy or care for anyone.
Yeah,
Therefore,
To
you're a horrible
just
person.
see it as objects happening, like knife going into someone and them screaming. You know what I'm saying? Like to give an extreme example, but like so you disattach from any thought of they might be suffering and feeling mirror neurons and all of that. I get it. It's like watching a nature film kind of thing, is what you're saying. And then like if we don't go into any story of what they must be feeling, but what about
and
like,
that
but and then I think Vince is more saying about like mirror neurons and that there is a reaction in the body, but like you don't have to go into stories about that. I don't know. That's what I'm hearing. But
Yeah, we don't have to
um,
spiral off is what I was saying. The spiraling off is where the suffering is.
yeah,
yeah, and even the stories can and probably will show up, but it's the seeing those stories for what it is that's the value here.
but it
So if the
seems to
stories
be
shows
that
up,
there is suffering. Are you
yeah,
saying that there's no
okay,
suffering or that
no,
I
no,
should
no.
just not spiral off?
So so here, this is a for most people, what I'm about to say is it just sounds wrong, and I get that. But you know, if you if the if the end goal, so to speak, is total liberation, if I'm just gonna put that there, if that's what you want, then this question of being okay with people suffering or not needs to be let go of, because suffering is like it's just created. So there is this, well, I should it's wrong to not in, acknowledge that people is suffering. But there is a step here where you just see the world's play for what it is. It's life. It's life moving. It's, you can interpret it as good and bad, right or wrong, whatever you want, but without those mental labels and interpretations, it's just what's happening.
Yeah, and I fully get that. And that's where those fears and thoughts about am I becoming a psychopath, because that's essentially
Exactly. And that's
I
the
see it at
mechanism.
times and I feel it and I notice you can look at it that way and it feels like withdrawing from getting into those hysterical spirals, and it feels a little bit, yeah, unempathic,
Not
but I get what
everyone goes that
freedom
far.
there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not everyone is able to go that far. It seems to me
Mm-hmm.
they can't get over that part because it makes them feel not human.
Yeah, and I think I kind of sense into that a bit, but it feels to me right now like there's a choice. In other words, sometimes it goes into stuff and sometimes it doesn't, just because it causes intense suffering. And I think that's what you were saying, Maya, about realizing that my suffering is the one I have to take care of in that moment. And yeah, like as Byron Katie says, I don't know what someone else is feeling. I do know that they're suffering here right now. So if you believe in eradicating suffering, eradicate your suffering, in other words. But yeah.
And when you're more in the clear with your own suffering, then after that, but this is time I'm talking about, and time is time. After that, you might be able to better
Right. Yeah.
act.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all so very, very much. Truly appreciate this space and all of you. Thank you. Thank you, Vince. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Marius.
Thanks, Tammy.
I don't know if this would help or would it be unhelpful. But the story comes to me that sometimes withdrawing is is uh, withdrawing can be more helpful. It's like when you need to vaccinate a baby, a child, and for a child, it's a tragedy. It's screaming and crying. Of course, it's the best. But there are also, like, you have to set a broken bone for someone. and you need to withdraw a bit in order to help.
Yeah, I mean, and it gives me an opportunity to kind of continue on what I just said, which Vince also pointed to, is that it doesn't mean that you have zero bodily reactions to what is happening. You know, your body can have a physical reaction to seeing other people's pain, for example. But because there is 100% acceptance to what is, without judgment on how it should or shouldn't be, and because the sensations is no longer interpreted as something that has anything to do with me or about me, then it's just what's happening. Was that clear, Vince? Or anyone?
You get it, yeah. So the story that popped up here that might be a good one to exemplify is, right, how do you feel about a lion killing a zebra in Africa? You can say, terrible lion, poor zebra. If you were God and you said, well, lions can't eat zebras anymore, right, and eventually you stop any killing by the lion, then lions don't exist anymore, do they? And so what we do, we come to some kind of arrangement with ourselves where we accept that lions kill zebras. It's just a fact of life. We can feel this or we can feel that about it, but we don't, because we just accept that it's a fact of life. Sad, but kids suffering is just a fact of life. If you don't feel a strong feeling about the lion killing the zebra, does that make you a horrible person? If you don't feel anything about kids suffering, oh, that makes you a horrible person, doesn't it? If you don't respond, if you don't react to the lion killing the zebra, it's just a fact of life. That's kind of okay. If you don't react to a child suffering, does that make you hard-hearted, not nice, something wrong?
But yeah, and just to build on that, it's not that you are not responding or responding or not responding. The body has a response, but it means nothing about you because there is no you there, right? So there's no need for meaning or judgment in that whole thing that is happening.
Mm.
It's just what's happening.
And it's worth pointing out that it's crazy extra stuff on top of what's happening where all the suffering originates. It's not in the original situation. It's always about the added extra.
Although I think in live, people do get upset watching a lion eat a zebra. Only when it's made into a movie, we don't suffer so much when we watch someone stabbing another person or when a zebra eats a lion. But in real life, I think we do respond to both. You know what I mean?
Yep.
When we actually see it, there is a response. Just like you said, there's crying about it or sadness in the body or whatever. But I think Marius is saying we don't have to go into story even about that. Like we can feel it, but not have to go into the meaning of it or what it means about me or them. because I go into a sad story about the world and how it doesn't have to be this way, and why a new baby's born, it's such a fresh opportunity. Why put all the old conditioning on it? And I go into craziness. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
what I said is maybe to just to ease your mind that it is that you can be more helpful when you are not so engaged in the stories. In the stories of other people.
Exactly. I mean, I think I feel enraged, and I could fly to Gaza this afternoon, but I would just got killed, so I would achieve nothing. But disengage a bit lets me, maybe, I don't know, work with someone else to find a better solution than just going there to get killed. It leaves you more room to be more logical and more efficient. If you really think you need to step in somewhere. If this is the case, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
I think it's important to realize that all of that is, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that's the difference here is all of this that we're discussing there. It's part of the dream. It's part of functioning in the dream. So it's different conversations here, right? So are we talking about severing our tie or our identification with the dream? Or are we talking about staying in the dream but having a less painful dream?
I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it. But there are like degrees, you know.
Yeah, I'm just saying that from a position of trying to point, it's difficult. At least for me, I find it difficult to. I can't mix those two because it gets convoluted. I'm trying to point that, okay, all of that is the dream. You want to get out of the dream? Listen to this. But if the conversation really is, you know, I want to stay in the dream, but I want the dream to be more pleasant, then that's another conversation. And it is a bit tricky in these meetings because some people they just want a better dream. And that's fine.
I
It's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm not like nothing is better or worse in that, but it's in terms of having a discussion, it's really difficult to keep it clean.
totally understand, but I think I find it easier to mix. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
So what would you say here would be the thing that would be getting out of the dream, and what, so within the dream it's making yourself feel better about the fact that they're suffering, and what would be getting out of it?
To see that all of that, meaning like they are suffering, that I can do anything about it, I should do anything about it, everything that is basically a story or a meaning making or thought is the construct of the dream. You step out of the thoughts and it's just what is happening without meaning. It's just life moving without judgment.
And I think additionally, you would only be able to do this if you lost the meaning of the label psychopath and just told yourself, label or not, I don't care. Only in this moment. But now you are tormented by this thought, by this belief. Am I a psychopath or not? By this question. Until you can lose the label and understand that the label means nothing, There's a whole
There's a judgment
long
about not
story.
being sick, but yeah.
Yeah,
Even
it's a
the
long,
even
long path to for the label to exist, you know, and a long story behind it. So it would be
yeah. So another way of saying
Um,
that is when I say psychopath and you say psychopath, there's a totally different meaning probably behind those concepts or the labels that we're using. You don't know
Yeah,
what I mean
I
when I
just
say
mean
psychopath.
withdrawing empathy and going into pain spirals, like withdrawing like those huge reactions to other people, and yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So I didn't point that like I wanted to know that the important thing was um, your meaning behind it. I wanted to point out that there are two totally subjective meanings behind both sides, and so none of them can be ultimately true. It's just a construct, part of the dream.
Mm-hmm.
but Marius, if I understand it, uh, doesn't matter that the concepts are different because all the labels have to go, all the concepts have to go. So
Yeah, but for them to go, I think it can be helpful to understand that we all put
that they're different.
um, subjective meanings on each label or concept.
well, I wanted to add that uh, what I said is also to this part of your mind, because I I feel like it has such strong defenses that I'm giving it a story, and I believe the story myself. That even psychopath can be very helpful and useful and productive because they see it is beneficial to them. It is better than killing people and going to prison. What's the benefit for me in that?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, can be useful. Yeah.
and and in a way, we are all psychopaths because we help people to feel better.
But yeah, I think just to get back to that, because it's a point that I really have wanted to say many or point out many times. It's just in these groups, we it would be perhaps more effective to be clear on what we actually want. Do we want to get out of the dream, or do we want a better dream? Because it is two totally different conversations from my perspective. And to get out of the dream means that most people probably will perceive you as detached, cold, arrogant, and probably other labels. Um, because from the outside, it might look like that. But from the inside, it's just not buying into the meaning anymore. So in a way, you're not fitting in the dream. You're not playing the game. So there's a
Okay.
trade-off, right? Yeah. Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, you just described how that's been like recently. I feel like I'm just learning a new way of being. I don't know if that's true. So what I like, if I say this, I know I'm on YouTube. There's some kind of self-doubt coming through, but I can clearly see there's two pieces. Like in one sense, there's an energy movement, there's a movement over there, supposedly, that's going on, and there's an experience going on, and there's an experience here. It's all the same. And gosh, I can't even speak about this.
And like even I'm having a reaction to that. Like I feel like that, and I got quite emotional when you said that, because like part of me thinks I should still have compassion, and I do in another sense. If we come, if we talk about the relative world, but there is a part that may seem detached. But there's a connection to that in a different way. I suppose you could call it compassion, but it's like, I can't even describe it. It's like, no, I can't even use any words.
It's the same. There's something that is the same. That is one thing that is having a different experience in different places. And places is a concept. Gosh, I can't even speak about it.
Would it be accurate to say it feels like you have like one foot within the dream and one foot outside of the dream? Like on one side, you kind of can buy into the meaning of what is going on, but on the other side, you feel the hollowness of that meaning.
Sorry, I lost you then. Sorry, Mary, say that again.
Yeah, so is it like you feel like on the one side you can feel or you partially at least buy into the meaning of what is going on, the story of what is going on, but on the other side you can feel the hollowness of that meaning, that story. So it's not, it's like a place of you can see that you can have a totally detached perspective on what is happening because it's what's happening. But on the other side, you're so used to living in the dream and you still have a connection to what that is, that there's a possibility to engage with that as well. And perhaps that because you do have access to this to detached part of you now, the dream part is judging the self basically, and the dream is judging the 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 total acceptance of what is, which it
Yeah,
judges as detached and cold and whatever.
yeah, yeah. And only by coming into this room and listening to the conversation am I getting a sense of how much is still there.
Yeah.
Like it's quite, yes, it's quite layered up actually, but I hadn't, until you touch against that in life, you don't see what's still holding that together. Yeah, like I should be like, it's funny because just recently I didn't even plan to do, but I did start sending money to the, you know, the Red Cross, and but that was just something that happened, and it didn't have too much like planning or thinking. It's just little things happen. So it's not like there isn't any compassion, but it's like, now when I say this, I don't mean this without compassion. Like it's almost none of my business in the sense of, it sounds really awful, but like I spent most of my life putting my finger in other people's pies and not helping very much. There seems to be a bit more, almost like the less you get involved, the more you can. I mean, I still pray. I pray every night before I go to bed like a little child, and I ask for more harmony, and you know, and that's a piece, you know, that's a piece I can bring. But the heaviness and the gloop of the conversation doesn't make sense to me.
Mm. I get what you mean.
And so I can sense that I have some attachment to a fear of being judged for that, and being vulnerable and saying that publicly. But I don't know, I just feel more and more comfortable. Like I actually feel more uncomfortable if I don't say it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fear of being, like, as your post said, batshit crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
And you see that fear is the self.
Yeah. And that's why I speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just ironic, it's almost synchronistic that the the, the critical voice that does want to, the critical voice is conditioned by I love the term consensus reality, right? So it's the way society in general thinks things operate, and it's crazy. It is, that's batshit crazy. Yet that's what most people believe, and that's what most people respond to. Variations of it, of course, all over the world, different countries, different ages, different generations, all have different responses to it. But it's that consensus where it's like unconsciously, but it's like the world is together. Unconsciously, that the world is together.
That was Lou, when you connect to that hearing thing, we get a echo feedback.
Yeah.
But this is it's I'm kind of loving that we're having this conversation now, because this is the very precipice of, you know, waking up within the dream or from the dream. So if you can't let go of that fear, or, you know, the want of clinging to that meaning because that keeps you part of the dream, then you are awake within the dream, which is fine. It's not, none of these are right or wrong. But if you really like want to go awake from the dream, totally dissolving the self, totally liberated, then it means that, you know, the fear of being perceived in a certain way needs to go. That also means that you're no longer part of the dream. It's a trade-off. Or it can feel like that at least.
Yeah.
And this is why, you know, you can't really want this, because that means that the you is gone, completely gone. Or at least belief in the you.
I couldn't say that I think the self is gone, but the way that this body mind moves through the day is like a 180-degree turn. Like there's some the experience is the same, but it's different. I don't know if I could say that the self has gone.
Well, the self hasn't gone because you still fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I'm pointing out. And I'm not saying that that's something to go for, like, unless that's what's happening. But you kind of were alluding to it, kind of feels more painful to, you know, not talk about this, to not be open about what you're actually experiencing. So it might seem like you're heading in that direction. But my point is that that fear is part of the self structure that is still here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that rumble strip of not it's like it's so narrow, like it doesn't take much for the illusion of self to be the alarm bell, if you want to call it. It doesn't take much, and it can be really small, and it can be a very slight contraction. It could be suffering. It can be in many forms. But there's not much, it's not very wide anymore, if that makes sense. The road isn't very wide. But it's not, but it's also okay. Like I don't fear that. I don't fear that.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? I don't fear that, but I fear still being judged by others. That's really interesting. I'd rather walk off the cliff, so to speak. Yeah.
Well, could also just be that, you know, you don't fear the idea of that, but this thing about being judged by others, you know, you actually experience. You can actually, in your day-to-day life, be judged by others. So it feels more real.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do here other than just, you know, seeing it for what it is.
And just to complicate that a little, when you see it for what it is, you might discover that a lot of what you think has turned up is just the shell of what turned up, of what used to be. It's not actually got anything underneath it. It's just there out of habit or there because conditions triggered it. But it doesn't have to have a belief underneath it anymore. And yet we've got to be very careful that when something like that shows up, that we don't mistake it for something that it's not.
That rings true. So when I was saying a few minutes ago, I could feel that I had all the old patterns of getting hot and sweaty, but actually there was more of something that wanted to just, like, that's the shell.
Mm.
You shouldn't say these things. You know, people will think this, and then like something just forces through and says, no, this is what you're going to say.
Mm.
The truth is, this is what I know to be true here, and that's why I feel very detached, because you can't, I can't say these things in other places with other people.
But detached is a judgment already.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I see that. It, and it's not like one way. It just plays out in different ways. Like I said, it's 100. Most places, or most times, it's 180 degrees the way it will show up in in the moment. And it comes with more freedom. So without that shell that Prince was just talking about, without that shell, it's just, yeah. It's almost like, I remember having the sense that I was being pushed from behind through life, like shoulds, do this, do that, gotta, blah, blah, blah. And then now it's literally, it's almost being led. It's like, okay, so done that now. So now what? What do you? And it's like waiting for that impulse to lead. Does that make sense? There's a bit in the middle that's not got to control all of that. It's like, what next? I don't know.
Mm.
It's just,
I'm just thinking that familiarity, a lot of it is just a transitional thing. Once you get familiar with something, you won't notice it anymore.
yeah. I do feel like I'm in a place of just change, or
Mm.
yeah, just kind of, it's different. I'm aware I probably don't make much sense, but just trying to find my way with words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get how hard it is with words, but I hear what you're saying. I get it. I get it. Yeah. I just had this flash of a thought of how ridiculous is it to even to want to be clear about it. I cracked up.
True. Yeah.
How's things been for you, Maya?
I have stories.
Good
I don't
story.
know if I need
Entertaining.
to tell them. The funny one is that I'm listening to you and to Marius today, and I think, oh, you say all the things I would say to people. I'm not this diplomatic with words. This is the only difference. But I would say the same things. The only thing is that I don't believe myself that I really get it. But I think that I learned it and I'm parroting them now. But it's just a belief, and I see it as belief, and then, wow, it's so funny.
I don't like that story.
No, because there's doubt in it. It's there. It's there. It will be there for some time. The other story, I had a difficult moment. Well, I got to hear a bit of gossip that it's going around about me, and it hurt me. And when I heard it, when I read, it was the sentence someone else wrote. When I read the sentence, then there was suddenly a visceral feeling, strong visceral feeling. And my first reaction was, oh, now everything will be coming. A visceral reaction, thoughts will be coming. These are stories. So the first reaction was, I know this is all this will all be constructed around this. And I also thought, well, I really don't know if the person meant this or not, and it's the words of someone else. And I didn't believe it at first, but like when you're swimming and the wave comes and it's simply too big, too strong, and you go under it. So, and I saw this will be too much. This will be too much. And for a day, I was underwater, completely aware that I'm underwater. Sometimes the insight popped in. These are all stories, and okay, but most of the time I believed them, and somehow I knew I believed the stories, but I was like weaker than usual to deal with these things, but because it was too much. It was too much. After that, there is I'm lying, it's not. But at moments, there was a bit of regret. Oh, this is a good situation to use. And I didn't use it, but I couldn't have. So I did with it what it was. The difference is that usually, I think it was so strong. It was a lot for me. Usually, I would have gone into depression for days, and the stories would just churn up in my mind. And now, okay, it lasts for a day because there was this bodily feeling like a knot in my stomach, and the bodily feeling was feeding thoughts, and the thoughts are feeding the bodily feeling. So it was just one and the other playing ping pong. But it subsided in a day or two, and it's okay. I remember the stories that I had about that. Okay, I really don't know if they are true or not. What I was able to spin in my head then. Okay, the difference is there. The difference is there. How I deal with difficult moments.
So what
But there's
happened
also something. Yeah.
when it was subsiding? You said it lasted for a day, then it subsided. What happened for it to subside?
Nothing actually.
So what was
Nothing
different?
actually. me regaining this ability to know that these are stories and I shouldn't believe them.
But you knew they were stories before, even though you were
Yeah,
still affected by them.
yeah.
So what happened between that knowing and this knowing? There was something different about this knowing that they were stories. That knowing
I
was,
don't know.
I'm lost and I can't do anything about it. This knowing
Yeah,
seemed to be,
that was the whole time there. When I saw that the stories were stronger than me, I thought, okay, they are stronger than me. Now it will be like this for I don't know how long.
okay,
I let it be. I just let it be.
right. So
I
you have
was
to
just
be stronger.
accepting of everything.
Do you have
Who
to
is
be
the me? Yeah, who is the me in that equation and the story?
The me is the me. I remembered Vince asking, "What's the relation between you and the story?" But it didn't help. I didn't get anything out of it. This is the point I have the wish to work on. Not the wish, not the need, not the think I should work on it. I have the impulse to work with it. This is something I really want from the inside. What's the relation between me and the story? And like a millimeter more of understanding that everything that hurts me
so
is the self.
that millimeter of
And
extra understanding, is that going to be a prologue or a
No, no. Conclusion.
conclusion?
Conclusion.
I remember you saying that you grew tired.
Yes, 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 yes.
I remember because I relate.
Yes, it's
It's
all this.
just growing tired of the stories and fighting with stories and
I was really, this is this metaphor with water, drowning under the stories and then, letting myself go, like when you're swimming and then you get tired and you float on your back with heads and with arms and legs spread. I was just floating there. And the stories were there. I was believing them or not believing them. And I really have no energy anymore to deal with stories. Let them
You know,
be. Let everything be.
Vince asked you a trick question. I don't know if he actually meant it as a trick question, but it is a trick question. Because there is no you in relationship to the stories. You are the stories.
Yeah, I know. And
And
somehow I know, and somehow
the
I
one
don't.
who is tired of the stories is another story about being tired of the stories.
You see, this one I don't see as a story. This one I see
well,
as a feeling.
the tiredness is in the body.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
It's
there's
I
a
don't
an
know.
sensation.
interpretation. Yeah, but then
Yeah,
there's meaning
yeah,
on
yeah,
the
but
yeah.
it's there is energy or there is no energy. It's
Okay, okay.
I get that, but there is not a separate you relating to a story. There is
Yeah,
you that is the story.
yeah.
well,
It's
I
not
well,
a,
know.
I can't make myself tired. It just
No,
has to happen.
I
exactly.
didn't.
It's a
I didn't.
condition,
This happened
but it's
without my control, and I have to admit I have no control. I have to admit, no control. This just happened. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I wouldn't say I have no time because there's nothing else to do. I don't want to make some free space for other things to do. No, but somehow.
But I think I I want to say it again because I think it's important for you to grasp, Maya, that as soon as the story stops, you stop, or the one that you think you are stops.
Yes, although there is more for me, there is deeper for me to go into this.
Mm.
I know. I mean, I see myself chipping on things away.
Mm.
This was the thing with control, and I don't know. This,
I just had an idea about this. And maybe it's appropriate for you to write down on a piece of paper all the bits of yourself that you're not prepared to give up, that you want to,
okay.
the bits of yourself that lose the self, but I'd just like to keep this part that's this or good at that.
The first one, I subscribe to Louise saying that I cannot say everything I feel and think here in this group because it will be on YouTube. So this was spot on for me also. And I was hit, the whole story began because I was hurt because someone has, because I
No,
got the news,
that's
someone
not why
has
you
an
were hurt.
image of,
You were hurt because of what you believed about it, not because of what they said.
also, yes. I mean, I can say the neighbors around my parents are asking themselves, since I've not been coming for 3 weeks now, that I have abandoned my parents, and it hurts so much because of this, because of my stories, that I've given so much, that I traveled so much, that it's really difficult. These are stories. Maybe there's some truth in them, but they are my stories. And this was the claim that directly challenges my stories.
Mm.
And this is what hurt me. Okay, and I claim another one that I'm clinging on to is my story. Oh, this whole thing with my parents is a story. Okay, yeah. This is a story. Okay. And I saw that. I did see that then, right away.
And do you see that, we take sub stories and put it into the stories of me so that the stories mean something in relation to me. So there is a main story, the main story of me, and then there are
Okay.
happenings which are
Yes.
sub stories that we put into the meaning of me. So
Okay.
those stories mean something about me and my story.
Okay, where are you going with this?
Well, I'm trying to point at that things that seem to happen, which are the sub stories, are only meaningful because I'm putting them in the main story, the main belief that there is a me here. So these are about me. So so the context or the lens that you're looking at life through is the me story. And then everything that happens around you is put into that. All of its story.
Did I get it? Did I get it right now? I have some mean story about me that I'm a good person, I'm a good daughter, and blah blah. And then there are things that happen, and then there are small pieces of the same story that I put into the main story or not? Did I get something wrong?
Me is a story, right? So your whole history is put to like a series of happenings. It's stitched together into a story of a me
Yeah. Yeah.
that like totally non-happenings were interpreted as stories, and then those stories were stitched together, and that became my story,
Okay.
all constructed in the mind. So sub-stories became a me story.
It's like
Just the
the me,
things.
the me story is the only story.
Yeah. If you could try to feel like the difference now, even in this meeting, the context you're putting on this conversation, there is a story here about a me that is engaging in discussion about something relating to me. All of that is a story. It's a context put on to what is happening here. Without that
Yes.
context, without that construct, that made up whatever, it's just this. It's just what's happening
Yeah.
with no meaning.
Oh, you know,
But this is, yeah, go on, but
when you were talking about avoiding emptiness, I thought, oh, maybe I come to these meetings because I come in order to avoid emptiness, this feeling of emptiness.
Yeah.
And now this meeting becomes feel empty.
but then
It's like I am playing on a stage, saying things by despair.
we could just as well be sitting here and going blah 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 blah.
Except the stories about it wouldn't be as meaningful.
Yeah, then we should sit and go blah blah blah.
Oh, blah, blah.
Sometimes it sounds to me like blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, sometimes. But I see when it happens, then I see that I'm actually engaging in my own stuff. But it's another story. Blah blah blah. I mean, no, no, no. There must be something wrong.
Just be aware of the context you're putting on what is happening all the time.
Context. This sounds a bit familiar, but it sounds also vague for me. Putting attention.
Um,
You could say the context defines the meaning.
Yes, it does. I know. So when we are talking here, there are different contexts. I'm applying more than one context on every situation. There's a context of us sitting here and talking in a group with exactly those and those people. there is another context that I'm sitting in this room and there's my family. There are contexts of stories that come about my parents, about my job, about everything.
And you see the red line in that, the red thread going in through every of those contexts is me, mine, I,
Yeah,
which is where the belief in a self lies.
yeah, yeah, okay, okay.
So funny thing, people often think that a downfall from this kind of stuff could be that they start to feel special or superior, uh, when in fact the opposite is much more likely to be the case. How can I be more special than a piece of dirt on the road? There's no logic in the world.
Without the context.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, but it's somehow understandable. I mean, when I say something, it's something that I'm compelled to say things that are meaningful to me. I'm not compelled to talk about other stories, other things, right? I may not even notice things that are of no meaning to me.
But the
So
meaning to
whatever,
you is constructed.
again,
And
again, yeah,
and when it's fully constructed, it is the context.
okay. The constructed me is a context.
Yeah.
Okay, that is coming to this from the back door somehow.
That's the perspective through which everything is seen.
Say it again. Say it again, please. So, how was it? Oh God, let me remember this.
I can't remember what I said already, so it doesn't matter.
Did you read the interpretation is the self that I asked you last time, Maya?
I read, kill me. I read the first, the first one was about the shadow work. I do remember I read that. And then came something in 4 parts. I did read this, but I don't know what it was.
Okay, so in the light of this conversation that we're having now, go back and read that.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah. You see this? I read this and I don't remember, but I do remember reading it and going, oh yes, yes, oh yes, yes. I should comment. I won't comment. I will tell him. So it
But now that
sat
we've
so
had
well
this
with me,
conversation, yeah, now that we've had this conversation, perhaps it will stick more because
even more. Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah. It was total recognition as I was reading it, but now, yeah, this is this. God, let me remember it. But it's fun. It's fun being with you here. This is the main point. It just feels like the right place to be. Although I forget everything, but okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Says he who forgets. Mm.
Yeah, context. I'm constructing me, and then it's me constructing context, and then I live in these contexts that I've constructed.
well,
Part of you does.
I want to say, I even don't want to say that. I say the construct is you. There's no
Yeah,
you constructing. There's not two separate things. It's just
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ongoing, ongoing. Yeah, I will read this again. But I didn't read Kill Your Parents. They should have. This is where I stopped.
Is that like killing the Buddha on the road?
Sorry?
Kind of. Same
Kind
principle.
of.
Killing your parents, like killing the Buddha on the road when you meet him?
I have to read it. I don't know. Not literally. He says not literally.
I had to add that last part because I was scared of Substack.
You see, you're scared. You're scared.
Yeah.
It's
No,
a
I
technical
just
thing.
they will probably like I was thinking they have some kind of algorithm that scans through the text, and if you know the headline is just kill your parents, that might be flagged.
It's a technical thing, technical
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, I'm sure that happens.
Sitting with you, Vince, is like a chamomile tea, and Marius is like a bitter medicine.
Yeah.
But I love you both.
That's funny.
Mm.
I like this medicine.
Me too.
Yeah. The thing, I'm waiting until he hands out the whips for people to whip themselves. No, it's good. Mm. But okay, that's a good wind up segue. I think I can go and have tea now. Mm. Thank you, everybody. It's always good. I get sick of saying that, but it's always true. It's always good. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.